Welcome back. We are studying the 6th chapter, Perek Shishi of Qiddush HaHodesh. This chapter, it's sort of like a warm-up. We are going to start dealing with the actual calculations. Now, these calculations are not as precise as the ones that are going to come up later, and I think it's a nice warm-up for us to start getting accustomed to the math. I don't like the term not mathematically inclined. I think every human being is by definition mathematically inclined. Some of us don't have enough math practice. We are not fluent on it currently, but everyone can pick it up if they practice a little bit. So for those who are not very fluent at the moment, it's highly advisable to follow inside the Makbili edition, which has beautifully helpful diagrams and tables, really setting up all the numbers in a very easy way to follow. פרק שישי הלכה א'. בזמן שעושים על הראייה, היו מחשבים ויודעים שעה שהתקבס בה הירח עם החמה בדקדוק הרבה, כדרך שההסתגנינין עושים, כדי לידע אם ייראה הירח או לא ייראה. When we do Qiddush HaHodesh on the basis of the sighting of the moon, then when that used to happen, the Hachamim used to have to calculate and derive and know exactly what moment it is that the moon is aligned right between the earth and the sun. That is called the hitkabesut. Again, when the moon is exactly in between the earth and the sun. And by knowing that, they know exactly when would be the moment after that moment, which is when the moon starts being seen again. And then they would know if to expect witnesses or not, and whether the witnesses would be truthful or not. ותחילת אותו החשבון הוא החשבון שמחשבים בקירוב ויודעים שעת קיבוצם בלא דקדוק ושעת קיבוצם בלא דקדוק אלא במהלכם האמצעי הוא נקרא מולד. And in order to first start this calculation, and by the way, this is a principle throughout Ilchot Qiddush HaHodesh, you'll see you'll be helped tremendously by this key. Think of the universe and think of the solar system and the lunar system. Think of it as simply as you can. It's like drawing a stick figure and then later starting fleshing it out and adding any other details you want, any adjustments you want. That's how you have to start. If you want to follow this halachot, start as simple as you can. Don't come into it with all of your very sophisticated understanding and intuitive grasp of exactly how the angles of the moon and of the earth are. So think of circles, think of lines, think of everything being perfectly aligned, and Harambam is going to guide us through the necessary adjustments. So even for these calculations, Harambam says we start by a number that is not very precise, is not very accurate, but it's a very helpful number. And to that number, we are going to start making adjustments in the following chapters. So this not very precise number is called the Moolaade, and that is the subject of this chapter. The Moolaade is the average time that it takes for the moon to cycle around the earth. This is not the same every single month because of that the movement of the moon around earth is not only a function of moon surrounding earth, but also of earth surrounding the sun. There is gravity involved, and it's not perfect circles. The angles are not perfect. So none of it is exactly the same, but the average is one number, and this average can be known by taking very large observations, observing very large periods of time, and then dividing it up by the number of cycles. That's how you derive that. That's called the Moolaade. ועיקרי החשבון שמחשבים בזמן שאין שם בדין שיקבסו על הראייה והוא חשבון שאנו מחשבים היום הוא נקרא עיבור ואלו הן. And the most basic principles used for deriving the Moolaade when there is no bedin out there and we don't really need the Soda Ibur. So nowadays we don't need Soda Ibur. All we need to know is the Moolaade, because in any event we're following a calendar and we want to know more or less. Given that we have the benefit of being able to sort of calculate and plan ahead years at a time, so long as it's years at a time, are consistent with the average would be okay. So all we need is the average. This is Ikere Ibur, this is the Ibur. It's not Soda Ibur, which is the topic of much more advanced chapters, starting in chapter Tet. So what are these main principles? Hayom v'halayla, 24 שעות בכל זמן. The day with the night, regardless of the season, are always going to aggregate 24 hours. 12 ביום, 12 בלילה. And this is then divided into 12 during the daylight and 12 for nighttime. והשעה מחולקת ל-1080 חלקים. Now, for Chachamim, they decided that the next unit after hours was going to be halakim. Halakim is a unit of time. It's a part of the hour. It's 1 in 1080 on the hour. Now, in our days, what we use is minutes, and under minutes, we still have seconds, which means that if you were to divide seconds per hour, you'd have 3,600 seconds in an hour. What we have here is 1080 halakim for an hour, which for those who want to go through the math, it's 3.333333 times smaller than the halakim. So each halak is 3.333 seconds. And why did they choose this seemingly arbitrary number, 1080? Why 1080 halakim? לפי שמניין זה יש בו חסי ורביע ושמין ושליש ושטות ותשיעה וחומש ועיסור, because it's a number that's it's divisible into many other numbers. You can divide it by 2, by 4, by 8, by 3, by 6, by 9, by 5, by 10. והרבה חלקים יש לכל אלו השמות, and each of these units can also be named by a certain name. משיתקבץ הירח והחמה לפי חשבון זה עד שיתקבצו פעם שנייה במהלכם האמצעי. So how long does it take? What's the average that it takes for the moon to circle around the earth? So following this unitary system of halakim, from one moment to the other, on average, again, it's never going to be exactly this, but on average, it's going to be 29 yom, 29 days, و12 שעות, and 12 hours, and this is hours, it's hours as if you are dividing exactly by 24. It's not solar hours, but real hours, objective hours. מיום 30 מתחילת לילו, from the beginning of the night of the 30th day, ו793 חלקים משעת 13, and from the 13th hour, also 739 out of 180 hours. So it's a little more than another half an hour. About 3/5 of another half an hour, of another hour. וזהו הזמן שבין כל מולד ומולד, וזהו חודשה של הלבנה. And this is how long there is between each molad and molad, and that's how long a lunar month is on average. So a couple of things about this. Number one, again, let's stress this out. This is the average. The molad is the point, the artificial point in time that we choose to signify these intervals of 29 days, 12 hours, 739 parts. If you were to divide an hour into 1080, that is how long there is between each molad and molad. So if you ever hear in Batei Knesiot, the Ashkenazim have this minhag to announce the molad is going to be on this day and day, on this hour and hour, or this hour and this many halakim. That is what they are referring to. They are calculating from the last blood this spread. Now, how did they know this in Harambam's time? So until Harambam's time, there had been astronomical observations. The way to know this, the way to calculate this, is by calculating a lunar eclipse. So the moon, if you look at every Rosh HaHodesh, if you look up to the moon, it's never going to be in the same exact spot, other than when you have a total eclipse, which is when the moon being between Earth and the sun is also at the same exact height. the angle moves always a little bit up and down, but every so often you have a lunar eclipse, which is when it's exactly in the middle. So if you take those spreads between each eclipse and eclipse for many, many, many years, many of those cycles, and then you divide up by what you know is around 29 and a half days, you will get to this number. And astronomical observations today, by the way, are only 2.9 seconds apart, 2.9 seconds apart from this calculation that Rambam gave to us, which might also be a function of 2.9 seconds being less than one helek. So 739 halakim is not precise, but neither would have been 740 or 738, in as much as the precision is less than one helek. So this is amazingly impressive that they had this. By the way, the Ralbag had an even closer estimation of this, Rabbi Levi ben Gereshom, and our Chachamim were always very distinguished in math and astronomy, and they should amaze us today that with the NASA observations we can only manage a couple of seconds of more precision, which would only be relevant in many years. Halacha Dalet. Shana shel Levana. How long is the lunar year? If the moon were 12 months of these spreads between Moolaade and Moolaade, of these 29 and a half days and 739 parts, יהיה כללה 354 יום ו8 שעות ו876 חלקים. What you'd end up having is 345 days and 8 hours and 876 halakim. ואם תהיה מעוברת, if you were to add a 13th month, also following this 29 and a half and 739 parts, then on the aggregate it will be 383 יום, it will have 383 days, ו-21 שעות, 21 hours, ו-589 חלקים, and 589 halakim. ושנת החמה, whereas the year of the solar cycle, the time it takes for Earth to circle around the sun, היא 365 יום ו6 שעות. It's 365 days and 6 hours and a quarter. נמצא, so what you find is that you have a little bit of a discrepancy. תוספת שנת החמה, שנת הלבנה, the discrepancy axis of the solar year over the lunar year is 10 ימים, ו-21 שעות is 10 days and 21 hours, in other words, almost 11 days, ו-204 חלקים and 204 parts. הלכה ה' כשתשליכי מחודש הלבנה 7 מימי השבוע, יישאר יום אחד ו12 שעות 700. Now it's very simple math, but you should follow it carefully and closely. So if you were to want to know how many weeks in each one of these average months of 29 and a half and some hours and some halakim days, so how many weeks are there in here? So you just divide by 7. And what's left over after dividing by 7? Ishaer yom echad. You're left with 1 day, because the first 28 days are 4 full weeks. So what do you have left? 1 day and 12 hours, 12 שעות ו-793 חלקים, and 739 halakim. Siman lahem, and there is a mnemonic for them. Aleph Yod Bet Tashtzag, or Eyab Tashtzag, however you want to read it. It's Aleph Yod Bet Tashtzag, which is one day, 12 hours, and 739 halakim. I don't see 39 here in Tashtzag. I'm paying attention to it for the first time. The siman doesn't really make sense to me. So 793 חלקים, 700 and I'm sorry, 793. I've been reading this wrong throughout. I'm very thankful for the mnemonic that's making me correct myself. So every time I said 739, I meant that to 793. That's the right number. Close to 800. וזוהי שארית חודש הלבנה, this is what's called the excess of the month, of the lunar month, over the week units. וכן, כשתשליך ימי שנת הלבנה 7 if you were to take how many weeks in a year, אם שנה פשוטה היא, and this is a simple year, in the lunar year, so if it's a simple lunar year of 12 months, in other words, 348 days, etc. $345 days and 8 hours, etc. So if you were to divide this into weeks, יישאר ממנה, what you'd have left over at the end is 4 ימים ו8 שעות ו876 חלקים. You'd have left over 4 days, 8 hours, and 876 parts. סימן להם ד' ח' תתאב, 876. וזוהי שארית שנה פשוטה, and this is the leftovers of a non-extended year. ואם שנה מעוברת, if it's an extended year, תהיה שאריתה 5 ימים ו21 שעות, then the leftovers is going to be 5 days, 21 hours, ו589 חלקים, 589 חלקים, סימן להם כ"א תקפ"ט, 521 and 589. Now, all of this hasn't served purpose here, but it's going to, because this is a very easy way of shortcutting if you want to know, for example, what day of the week the Moolaade is going to be, as you're going to see in a bit. הלכה ו' כשיהיה עמך ידוע מולד חודש מן החודשים ותוסיף עליו א' יב תשס"ג, יעשה מולד חודש שאחריו. If you know where the Moolaade is of any one of the months, let's say I know the Moolaade of Adar, I want to know the Moolaade of Nisan, so I just need to add 1/12, in other words, 1 day. So if it was on Tuesday at, let's say, 9 o'clock exactly, I add 1 day, that's Wednesday, 12 hours, so from 9 o'clock, it's 9 p.m. now, if it was 9 a.m., and then I add also 783 parts to 9 o'clock, it's going to be closer to 10 o'clock than 9 p.m. That's when the Moolaade is going to be in the next month. In other words, I add 4 weeks and then that much time. ותדע באיזה יום ימי השבוע ובאיזו שעה ובכמה חלק יהיה, and that's how you know what day of the week it's going to be, and what time, and how many חלקים. כיצד? How so? An example, הרי שהיה מולד ניסן באחד בשבת ב5 שעות ביום ו107 חלקים. Let's say that the Moolaade of Nisan is Sunday, the 5th hour, and it's into the 5th hour, 107 parts, סימן להם א' ה' ק' ז'. So what do you do to that? הלכה ז', כשתוסיף עליו שארית חודש לבנה, when you add to it just a leftover, if you ignore the weeks, just add the leftovers, והוא א' י"ב תשס"ג, you add 1 hour, 1 day, 12 hours, and 793, יעשה מולד אייר, it follows that the Moolaade of Iyar is going to be בליל שלישי, the night of Tuesday, 5 שעות בלילה, the 5th hour of the night, ו900 חלקים, and exactly 900 parts, pretty close to the 6th hour, סימן להם ג' תתק. ועל דרך זו על סוף העולם, חודש אחר חודש, you can do this forever and ever, month after month. The average, again, is very precise, and if you know one Moolaade, you can calculate every single month going forward for the rest of history, accounting obviously for those few seconds that cripple into the calculations, which eventually become meaningful, but this is what the Moolaade is. הלכה ח' וכן כשיהיה עמך ידוע מולד שנה זו, תוסיף שאריתה על ימי המולד. Also, if you know when the Moolad was in 1 year. So I know that last year, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Moolad was at hour X, in day X. ותוסיף שאריתה על ימי המולד, I can also just take it year by year and add the she'erit. So I add 12 months, 12 lunar months, and then, or whether it's מעוברת or not מעוברת, I have both numbers. אם פשוטה היא שאריתה פשוטה, ואם מעוברת שאריתה מעוברת, יצא לך מולד שנה שלי אחריה, that's how you can calculate the מולד of the next year. וכן שנה אחר שנה עד סוף העולם, so to year after year, forever. והמולד הראשון שממנו תתחיל, and Rambam says, I just want to tell you, so you begin from a molad that we know for a fact that's the correct molad, and I want you to count from this one. הוא מולד שהיה בשנה הראשונה של היצירה, so count from year 1 of the 5,777 years we count as of today. And in the first one was, והוא היה בליל שני, it was the night of Monday, 5 שעות בלילה, 5 hours into the night, ו204 חלקים, 204 parts, סימן להם בהרד. In other words, Monday, 5 hours, and 204 חלקים. וממנו היא התחלת החשבון, and knowing what year it is, then you can very easily multiply that year by the number of years and know when the Moolad should be. And you do that by taking Shenot HaHama. So Shenot HaHama we have, also for Shenot HaHama we have the how much the leftover is. So just multiply Shenot HaHama, the 365 and a quarter days, by 5,777, and that's how you can start calculating. Now, I just want to make a very important point. Rambam is not making here a historical statement. In fact, it's kind of weird that the very first Moolad would have been on a Monday. Why on a Monday? So the moon was put in place on a Wednesday, and what does that mean that the first Moolad of presumably Aleph Tishri is on a Monday? It's a very weird statement. It also doesn't mean that this has never changed ever since. It's very possible, like Immanuel Velikovsky argued, that the lunar system has indeed shifted places, and we don't see the same thing that people used to see back then. Some of the evidence to this is that in Egypt, calendars have 360 days, not 365 days, and the same happens with Mayan and Incas in Mexico. So maybe some things moved around. Maybe really if Adam Arishon had looked up to the sky on that first Monday, first of all, it wouldn't have been a Monday, and also it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been on that time. So this is just to aid us with the calculation. בכל החשבונות האלו, with all of these calculations, הלכה ט', שתדע מהם המולד, from which you derive the מולד, כשתוסיף שארית עם שארית, כשתתקבץ מן החלקים 1080 תשלים שעה אחת, so whenever you add up and you end up having more than 1080 חלקים, you just add an hour, ותוסיף אותה למניין השעות, and you add it to the hours, וכשתתקבץ מן השעות הבא ו20 תשלים יום, and then when you make up 24 you make a day, ותוסיף למניין הימים, וכשתקבץ מן הימים לתל שבעה תשיך שבעה מימים ותניח השאר, and then when you have 7 or more, you just drop it from the calculation and you continue counting from then, because we only want to know what day of the week at this stage. שאין אנו מחשבים לידע מניין הימים, אלא לידע באיזה יום מימי השבוע או באיזה שעה ואיזו חלק יהיה המולד, because all we want to know is what day of the week, what hour, and what חלק is going to be the מולד. הלכה יוד. כל 19 שנה שיהיו מהם 7 שנים מעוברות ו12 פשוטות נקרא מחזור. Every 19 years, of which 7 are going to be extended years, and 12 are going to be non-extended years. This is called a cycle, a מחזור. ולמה שמחנו על מניין זה? And why do we count a מחזור of 19 years? שבזמן שאתה מקבץ מניין ימי 12 שנה פשוטות ו7 מעוברות ושעותיהם וחלקיהם, because if you were to add up the time of 12 years that are פשוטות and 7 that are extended with their hours and their חלקים, ותלשים כל 1080 חלקים שעה וכל 420 שעות יום ותוסיף למניין הימים, and you do what we said before of lumping up every 1080 חלקים into hours and then every 24 hours into days, תמצא הכל 19 שנה משנה החמה. You're going to end up with exactly a round number of 19 years of equivalent to 9 times 365 and 6 hours. It coincides with the cycle of the sun. שכל שנה מהם 365 יום ו6 שעות בשווה, ולא יישאר ממניין ימי החמה בכל 19 שנה זו חוץ משעה אחת ו485 חלקים, סימן להם א' טפה. It's not exactly precise. Rambam is saying you will have leftover, you will have a little bit of an excess of the solar cycle over the 19 years cycle of this kind of moon years. In other words, 7 extended and 9 and 12 and 12 and 12 peshutot and 12 not extended. So you will have left 1 hour 485 halakim. And the siman is aleph tapa. נמצא במחזור שהוא כזה, החודשים כולם חודשי הלבנה והשנים שני חמה. So if you have a cycle like this of 19 years, you have thus resolved and reconciled between having months that are lunar and years that are solar. והשבע השנים המעוברות שבכל מחזור ומחזור לפי חשבון זה, and if you continue this cycle and you want to know which of these years are שנים מעוברות are extended years, and שנה שלישית מן המחזור, it's going to be always the third year, ושישית ושמינית, then the sixth, then the eighth. In other words, go from skipping 2 twice to skipping once, the next one. ושנת 11, then you skip again 2. ושנת 14, you skip again 2. ושנת 17, you skip again 2. ושנת 19, and then you skip only 1. So you're going to go in intervals of 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2. That's how it is. כשתקבץ שארית כל שנה מ-12 שנה, הפשוטות שהיא 4 שמונה 876, when you take from each of these 12 years that are פשוטות, and you see how much they are missing, ושארית כל שנה מ7 שנים המעוברות, and how much they have in excess, those 7 years that are extended, and that is 5 days, 21 hours, and 589 halakim, ותשליך הכל, and you sum everything, you aggregate everything, 7 into weeks, יישאר שני ימים, you're going to have left over 2 days, ו16 שעות, and 16 hours, ו595 חלקים, and 16 hours, and 595 חלקים, סימן להם בית יודבב תקצה, וזהו שארית המחזור. And this is the leftover of the מחזור, which is going to be resolved, which is going to serve to show you how much the Moolaade is shifting by from one מחזור to the other. So you calculated the Moolaade, right, by the years that were peshutot, by the years that were me'ubarot. You added that up, then you subtracted, you canceled out every unit of 7 days, then every unit and then what you're left with is 2 days, 16 hours, and 595 halakim, which means if you were to add that to any any Moolaade, you're going to have, the Moolaade of the first Moolaade of the last מחזור, you're going to have the Moolaade of the next מחזור. כשיהיה לך ידוע מולד תחילת מחזור ותוסיף עליו 2/16,595, יצא לך מולד תחילת המחזור שאחריו. Just like we said, you have the מחזור, the מולד of the first מחזור, you add these days and you know what day of the week and what hour is going to be the next מולד, the מולד of the first מולד of the next מחזור. וכן מולד כל מחזור ומחזור עד סוף העולם. וכבר אמרנו שמולד תחילת המחזור הראשון, and we already said that the very first מחזור, the one in בריאת העולם, היה בית רד, it was Monday, 5th hour, 204. ומולד השנה הוא מולד תשרי של אותה שנה. And that מולד was of תשרי of that year. ובדרך הזאת תדע מולד כל שנה שתרצה ומולד כל חודש שתרצה משנים שעברו ומשנים שעתידים לבוא. That's how you can know then, on the basis of that assumed first מולד of the very first תשרי of בריאת העולם, that's how you can know any other מולד ever. How so? כיצד? תיקח שני יסיעה שעברו וגמרו ותעשה אותם מחזורים של 19. So you have to take these 5,777 years and subtract the largest integral number that is a multiple of 19. Okay, so you divide by 19, then you take that the integral in that number. So let me just do the calculation here quickly for us live. 577 divided by 19 is going to give 304, 0526 315 789 474. So what I have to do now is take the 304, multiply 304 by 19. That's 5,776. That's when the mahzor, the last mahzor was. So if I subtract 5777 from 5776, I now know that we are in the first year, or right after the second year rather, of the mahzor. So that's how I know where I am in the mahzor. So as of the beginning of the mahzor that ended with the year 5,176, at the beginning of the next mahzor, I can know exactly when the Moolaade is, because I now know how many mahazorim is 304 there have been since Beriat Olam. So if I take how much a Moolaade shifts from one mahzor to the other in terms of weekdays, which is 2 days, 16 hours, 595 halakim, and I multiply that by 304, and then of course you can obviate anything that makes weeks, take that out, and then you're going to end up with a spread in terms of the lowest number of days that is not a multiple of 7, the excess of days over the largest multiple of 7, and then whatever is left in terms of hours and hakim, and then you're going to know by how much this mahazor, the Moolaade in this mahazor shifts from Beriat Olam. Let's see Harambam's calculation now. כיצד תיקח שני יסידה שעברו וגמרו ותעשה אותם מחזורים של 19 ותדע מניין המחזורים שעברו מניין השנים שעברו במחזור שעדיין לא נשלם. So then you know how many מחזורים have passed. In our case is 304. And then מניין השנים שעברו במחזור שעדיין לא נשלם, and the number of years of the מחזור that still hasn't finished, that's 1 in our case. ותיקח לכל מחזור ומחזור בית יודו תקסה, so you have to multiply that by 304. ולכל שנה פשוטה משנה המחזור שלא נשלם, and from the years of the mahzor that were shanim peshutot, like last year was actually Ma'uberet, I believe. So if it had been pashut, you would add to it 4 days, 8 hours, and 876 halakim. Dalet het tatav ulchol shana Ma'uberet hekaf alef tukabetz hakol, and then you add everything up. ותשלים החלקים שעות, ותשלים השעות ימים, then you add up the חלקים into hours, the hours into days, והימים תשלים שבעה, then the days you reduce them to anything that's reducible by a factor of 7. והנשאר מן הימים ומן השעות והחלקים הוא מולד שנה הבאה שתעשה לידע מולדה. And then what's left over of days and of hours and of parts is the Moolaade of the next year that you'll want to know when the Moolaade is. Moolaade Hashana sheyaseh b'cheshbon hu Moolaade Rosh Chodesh Tishri. The Moolaade that's going to result from this calculation is always going to be Tishri, because that's what we are starting from. וכשתוסיף עליו א' י"ב תשס"ג, יסד מולד מרחשוון. And then if you add to it a day, 12 hours, and 793 halakim, you'll get the next month, and so on and so forth. You can add that up to get any other month following that. וכשתוסיף על מולד מרחשוון א' י"ב תשס"ג יצא מולד כסלו, וכן לכל חודש וחודש זה אחר זה עד סוף העולם. You can do this forever and ever. So again, the concepts here were not very complicated. The math is difficult to follow unless you're following. Again, it's difficult to follow unless you're following. If you're following, it's very, very easy. And through these, with these brief minutes, we were able to understand, due to Harambam's brilliant educational method and explanations and elucidations, exactly why we have the 19 years, how to calculate within those 19 years when it's Shana Me'oberet, when it's not Shana Me'oberet, and every single Moolaade that we have. And we still don't know what the Moolaade means with respect to which day is Rosh Chodesh and how many days of Rosh Chodesh we have. That's going to be in the next chapter. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.